Welcome, my dear seekers of shadows, to yet another chapter of Violet Nocturne's Echoes of the Dark. Tonight's tale begins with something so seemingly ordinary, a mirror. But I do warn you, by the end, you may never view your reflection through innocent eyes again. We all trust our mirrors, don't we? They're windows, they say, to our vanity, our truth, and sometimes to something much darker. Shall we begin? Allow me to introduce Stella Thorne, a meticulous antique collector with a flair for finding the obscure. She specialized in the almost forgotten, a realm where the storied past creates intrigue. One chilly autumn afternoon, Stella found herself in a little-known shop, nestled between two abandoned buildings that seemed to lean into shadows. Wrought iron signage at the entry bore the cryptic words, "Essences of Yesterday." Behind the counter stood an elderly shopkeeper who, despite his kind smile, had the eyes of someone who had seen too much. Among the aisles of relics and fragments of lives now gone, Stella stumbled upon the mirror. It had the kind of frame an artist would design for nightmares. Ornately carved serpents twisted into eternity, their ophidian heads consuming their own tails. To her discerning eyes, it wasn't just decorative, it was alive with detail, the craftsmanship too daring to be understood. Intrigued, she approached the shopkeeper and asked about the piece, only to be met with hesitation. He shared whispered lore. It was an heirloom from a reclusive family long believed to have dabbled in forbidden pursuits. They called it the Hunger Glass. Are you familiar with that peculiar superstition? That mirrors can consume fragments of your soul when you stand too close? Yes, that idea had merely seemed quaint to Stella, until that day. Unable to resist its allure, she purchased it, amused by its ominous name. The Hunger Glass found a place in her study, a room where Stella retreated from the world. She admired it, cleaned it, but as the hours wore on, the temperature in the study grew colder, less inviting. The mirror's presence felt unsettling, as though its reflection was registering more than her image. But what good is it to obey fleeting fears when beauty and curiosity so easily overwhelm caution? She dismissed her unease, confident in the facts she knew, facts that could be understood. Yet some things cannot be unraveled by logic, can they? As the sun faded that evening, Stella began noticing subtle shifts in the mirror's surface. It shimmered faintly as though her movements were not passing reflections, but instead actively captured, absorbed even. She tested it, waving her hand in deliberate patterns. The reflection followed, but with a lag. Then her own form blinked, despite her certainty that she hadn't. A coincidence. At least, that's what she whispered to herself in the silence. It grew bolder during the nights. When Stella approached, so did something from within the mirror. At first, its changes were slight. A curl in her hair that didn't exist. A wrinkle that wasn't part of her visage. But soon, the mirrored surface began to show malicious distortions. Stella grimaced at her own fear, finding excuses to avoid the study. Yet avoiding such curiosities only tempers the hunger, doesn't it? We all return eventually to what pulls us in. One fateful evening, after hours of brooding, Stella resolved to study the artifact further. That's when everything changed. You see, mirrors aim to reflect. Yet the Hunger Glass? It aimed to claim. As Stella peered into its depths, her reflection stepped forward with a defiant confidence that wasn't her own. Its black eyes held mischief, amusement, and a creeping horror. Then, with icy efficiency, her reflection reached out. Its arm moved closer to press against the surface of the glass. Impossible, she thought, yet undeniably real. It beckoned her. Against all logic and instinct, Stella leaned closer, closer still, until she felt a subtle pull, a tangible grasp around her soul. In that moment, the lines between her world and the one within fractured. Audible cracks hissed from the glass. Reality became particulate chaos as the room disappeared, unveiled into a warped, endless void of starless black. And Stella? Let's just say she isn't admiring antiques anymore. No, she's inside now, a prisoner of the hunger glass. Her reflection? Oh, it lives on, walks her world, deceiving her friends. But every so often, should you visit essences of yesterday, you might see her face staring back at you. A warning, a lamentation, but most of all, her call for rescue. A rescue that will, naturally, claim you next. The question is not if you'd fall victim to the hunger. The question is, when? Stay wary of mirrors, my dear friends. Stay wary of their hunger. And remember, not all reflections are content to simply stay within their frame. Until next time, I remain yours, Violet Nocturne, guiding you ever deeper into the echoes of the dark.